Hi, it's Chris with Implied Music. If you're like me, when you were learning harmony initially, you probably were exposed to the primary chords, the chords built on the first, fourth, and fifth steps of the scale, maybe the sixth step of the scale, that minor chord. Those four, they're the meat and potatoes chords in the major scale. But the chord built on the seventh step, the seventh chord built on the seventh step of the scale, the half diminished or minor 7 flat 5, is unique, it's special, it's a little bit off. I remember being sort of a little bit scared of it when I was a young student, but great tricks. I've got 2.5 tricks with half diminished chords today. Okay, first of all, if you've been getting some value from this channel, subscribe. We're doing so well with subscribers. I'm super happy about it. If you want to comment, if you want to ask me a question, I'm not really asking very much of you guys. Subscribe to the channel. Subscribers help me get this message out. I want to talk music theory that's useful for everybody in a way that is, I don't know, understandable. So let's do a quick review of where that half diminished chord lives in the scale and sort of how it's most often used. So you remember this. The seventh chord built on the first step of the scale, in this case C, looks like so. And it's major, and then we have the minor 7 on 2, another minor 7, another major 7. On the fifth step of the scale, the dominant chord. And remember these three notes. They're going to come back in a second. On the sixth step of the scale, there's a minor 7 chord, and now we're at the seventh step of the scale. There it is. The minor 7 flat 5. Minor, minor 7, flat 5. Those four notes have a unique quality. They appear to us to be a normal kind of in the scale seventh chord, and yet they've got that special spicy tritone between the root of the chord and the fifth. Well, we're going to exploit that tritone. Anytime, I'm always looking for tritones. Anytime you've got a tritone, you've got some utility. Here's our first trick. So listen to this. Here's D minor 7, G7, C6. Now, what I've done is actually built my G7 chord as if it was the seventh step of the major scale. The root down here is G, and the top notes are that minor 7 flat 5 chord, B half diminished. I get the third of G, there it is, the fifth of G, the seventh of G, and the ninth. I got extensions. In fact, all of these chords have extensions. D minor 9, I guess you'd have to say, G9, and then C6, or C9, I forget whatever. 6, 9, C6, 9. Well, those would be rootless voicings in the right hand, but I put roots in the bottom so that you can hear them. Well, there's a number of ways to do that. Here's the same thing in inversion, and it's a little bit easier to see the D minor 9 chord. It's in root position. And you can hear you get rich, thick voicings out of that. And here's exactly the same thing. Next voicing up. Well, that tritone is going to be useful. Let's look at trick number 2. Okay, one of the most sort of great sounding cadences we can play is that 1-4-1 cadence. And here I've played G6, C6, back to G. Listen to it. It's a beautiful sound. G6, C6, and then G6. I think one of the most beautiful pop sounds, and we hear it in lots of pop music, is to take that 4 chord and make it minor. C minor 6. Has an elegant sort of yearning quality, but look at that C6 chord for a second. The one that I played was E flat, G, A, C. And if I play it with A on the bottom, I get A minor 7 flat 5. That tritone can resolve either in, surprisingly, or outwards. Now let's take a look at those resolutions, because tritones are super powerful for us. I've got a tritone, that is to say, 3 whole steps, and it's the engine of any dominant chord built into that minor 7 flat 5 chord. A and E flat is a tritone. The root and the fifth make a tritone. Ordinarily, it would be the 3rd and the 7th of a dominant chord. What that means is it's a pivot chord. This is a pivot chord trick. So that A and E flat can resolve to inwards to B flat and D. And suddenly I've got a B flat chord. I've gone from, surprisingly, C minor 6 to B flat major. I could also resolve outwards, as I've done here. The E flat goes up to E natural. And I've resolved from C minor 6 to E major. Listen to how those two resolutions sound, because it's a great way to pivot to a new key center. It's very cinematic. It's got an epic quality that's quite bright or mysterious, depending on how you manage it. Well, listen to it. Here we go again. G, C minor 6, mysterious, B flat major, a mysterious chord. And then here's the same thing. G, C minor 6, E. Beautiful, bright resolution. All right, let's go on. There's a famous moment in choruses all around the world around Christmas time in O Come All Ye Faithful. It's like in the 3rd verse or something like that, where we're in the key of G, where something which has been previously harmonized with a 1 chord is suddenly harmonized by a substitute chord. In this case, the note D is harmonized by B minor 7 flat 5. And take a look at, you don't have to look at the notes individually, but I've written the chords in. B minor 7 flat 5 acts as a pivot chord to E7, and then it resolves to A minor, and then later, just a beat later, B. And this is a classic example of just going 2, 5, 1 in minor. This substitute chord has a lot of juicy power. Listen to how dramatic it is in the context. Winding up on B major like that from the A minor, it's very bright and beautiful. That holiday experience is a big moment in a lot of choristers' life. Okay, here comes the chord. They actually capitalize it, T, C. There's one more that I want to get to before we stop, and it's really quite famous. I've done, I think, a whole video on it. Classical musicians call it the Tristan chord, and it's from Wagner's Tristan and Isolde. It's a very important thematic motif. Now, he notates it, here it is right here, with sharps instead of flats. F minor 7 flat 5, but instead of E flat, he's written D sharp. Instead of A flat, he's written A sharp. And to some degree, it's because of that ascending, yearning melody that he's harmonizing. And I won't go into it now, but many classical theorists don't analyze this the way we're talking about it today. They rather look at it as what's called a French sixth, a secondary dominant that drops down a half step to a dominant chord, the E7. But if you look at the notes, they are definitely a minor 7 flat 5 chord, and it's used as a secondary dominant to get to the dominant. Here, listen to it, how it sounds, and take a look at it on the screen. And then it's a really important moment in sort of music history and music theory, the use of that tension expanding outwards to kind of a surprise chord. Well, I just now noticed that my microphone's been putting a shadow on my forehead whenever I turn toward the camera, and I hope you can tolerate that. But listen, don't be afraid of half diminished chords. Their utility comes from the tritone that's built in. Between the root and the fifth, a tritone that allows us to go a couple of different directions, surprising directions. Well, I hope this has been useful. Like and subscribe. Ding the bell, you'll be notified when I do my videos. I'll see you next time.